It started. So I found out. I thought about a bias. It has to do with color, because I actually get the most compliments on this series, typically, and I think it's because it's pink. Because you don't expect it, because traditionally,
Yeah.
the woman's.
Yeah. My husband loves me. My husband loves them. Has does this. That's a good one.
That's right. I mean, it's something. It's not as impactful. Okay, everyone. May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please? We are about to begin. James, leave Derek alone. All right. Once again, you guys are blessed with having me sit up here for yet another session. So, yay. Um, Happy to do it, though, and happy to have you all in the audience. This is a topic that is pretty much super near and dear to Elaine's heart and my heart. It's why we're here. It's why we push so hard for diversity and the programs that we implement. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. This is really informal. It's fireside chat. Feel free to ask questions, pipe in at any given point. Um, and so with that, I'll let Elaine introduce herself, and we can take it from there.
Good afternoon. Good to see you all. So many familiar faces and some of our Patent Pathways participants, and also PPP overlap, which is wonderful. My name's Elaine Spector. I'm a partner at Harity and Harity. I joined them about 7 years ago. And what's great about my firm is that from the moment I walked through the door, they've been very diversity focused, and they're innovators themselves. And so they really wanted to solve and put a lot of effort and time into how are we going to diversify our profession. My story is not unlike many others. As a mechanical engineer, I would say in my starting class at University of Maryland, there was 500 students in the class, and I looked around the room and I don't think I really understood that mechanical engineering wasn't that diverse. My dad was a mechanical engineer. We didn't really talk about diversity back then. And I looked around the room and I'm like, 1, 2, 3. Oh my gosh, there are 3 women here. So understanding what that feels like when you are at school, sometimes professors not looking you in the eye, and then entering the patent profession, at first at a small boutique with all white men, and then trying to learn to navigate the field. It isn't easy, but there's a lot of lessons learned along the way. And my hope is that we can remove some of those barriers to others who are entering this field. This conference is about diversity and innovation, and I'm going to repeat what everybody says, how important it is to have lawyers, patent attorneys, agents that people trust. And sometimes that is because we have similar backgrounds. So I'm excited to be here and excited to talk about this topic of retaining diverse talent.
Yep. So do you want to start off and just give the crowd some information on, kind of our new partnership, as it were, and how it came to fruition?
Oh my gosh, I don't even remember how it came. I think it came through fruition by just conversations. We decided that our nonprofits were both focused on bringing more diverse talent into the field. And so NCPP has been around through their patent pipeline program and are filling that need for training. Like you said, you can pass the patent bar. I have actually the similar story. I took it 2L year, no experience whatsoever. I actually did claim drafting. I think I was the last year. I'm dating myself. But I had no idea what I was doing when I entered into the profession. So, NCPP is filling that wonderful need and recruiting and bringing more diverse talent in. We wanted to step in the area of providing resources for those who want to take and pass the patent bar. So the PLI course our nonprofits will cover, as well as the sitting fees for the patent office. And so we felt like there's a synergy between our two organizations. And right now we are working together with supporting participants. And so we'll refer participants, if I have participants through our program that are interested in getting more of that experience and getting those reps. I mean, learning patent law and drafting application, it's not a spectator sport. You don't sit in class and say, oh, I got it now, I can write a patent application. No, you got to get reps, you got to get trained. And so NCPP and the Patent Pipeline Program has provided that great resource to participants. And what we're both trying to deal with is, like, how do we get these wonderfully trained, highly intelligent participants jobs? And that has been a struggle for both of us. And at some point, I think our first year was super successful, and the affirmative action decision hit. And so we're getting more pushback on that. But I'm gonna throw it back to you.
Yeah. No. It in my mind, it's a match made in heaven, right? Like the two things that law firms are always looking for in this profession is, have you taken the patent bar and do you have any practical experience, right? None of which have anything to do with going to law school. When
Yeah.
you really think about it.
Oh,
And so traditionally, we've asked individuals who had interest in patent law, the first thing we tell them is, hey, go to law school, become a patent attorney. Okay, go acquire debt and not learn the skill that you need in order to actually be hired, because firms are going to view you now as having this pay grade. At this juncture, I think one at what first years are making what 180, 200,000 a year, but you don't have the practical experience to justify that firm to hire you, right? So we've taken a unique kind of approach to it, and working with getting more engineers and scientists the practical application over with the pipeline program, and then also passing the patent bar with the patent pathways program, right? And it's a lot of P's floating around, but you get the point. So that's one of the things that I really like about our partnership. And as this class, we have two former patent path the class that's graduating today. We have two former patent pathways or two patent pathways alumni, and then also in your current patent pathways class, you have, I think, is it two or three patent pipeline program alumni in that class. And so that's a beautiful thing, because we're trying to create the perfect candidate, so to speak, as far as what we've understood most law firms to want, right? But the issue is, as Elaine mentioned, is that it's still not good enough, right? It's okay. They have the patent bar, they have experience, and it's still not good enough, right? Like these are all the excuses that we used to hear. Oh well, we can't find the diversity, right? We can't find the diversity. Oh well, they're diverse, but they're not trained. We can't justify the spend. Also, now we have them being trained. They're diverse. We're doing the recruiting, the legwork, where they're taking and passing the patent bar, and it's still not good enough, right? And in the wake of the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action, we've seen our sponsorships take a landslide, right? And it's really, unfortunate to come so far and then, backslide just as quickly. And so with the reduction in DEI efforts across the board, um, we have to continue to ideate and figure out ways to actually help you. And the one thing I can truly appreciate about Elaine is when I'm in my feelings about something a student has done or something a law firm has done to a student or how they treated them or all these things that we have to deal with, I can call her, and it's this kindred relationship, because we can relate on all of those things, not only from the perspective of seeing our students go through them, but having gone through them ourselves, right? And that is that. that takes a weight off of me because at certain times it feels unbearable.
Yeah.
It's like who can I talk to who's going to understand exactly what I'm going through and exactly why I feel like what that firm just did was, I'm going to say BS. I'm going to keep it PC and say BS, but you know what I really want to say. Um,
Yeah, it's really interesting because we do deal with a lot of the same problems. So as soon as it's coming out of his mouth, I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I know, exactly with me. And, you know, it is, we're both passionate about diversity and we want to see, and we're both want to see results. Like we're taking action and we want to see results. And so when we see pushback or we see maybe excuses or reasons why or et cetera, you know, it's disheartening. It's disheartening. So I'm grateful to align with you on these initiatives because I think we still need to. I still think we need to ideate on it and continue to pivot. And if any of you have been involved with a nonprofit, it is like a startup company. So you plan everything out. This is going to work like this. Everyone's going to pass the patent bar. And right here, we're going to introduce them in 3 months. They're going to pass it. And then we're like, oh, well, that didn't work. Okay, pivot. And so you're pivoting a lot and you're innovating and you're trying to find ways because, our field it's a complicated field. It's a complicated profession. And so, we don't give up. There's definitely still progress to be made in this area.
yeah, yeah. And with that, we're always open to ideas, right? Like it's a ever evolving society and profession. We've had to evolve and adapt and change with the times. As recently as you, I guess, expanding the doors for the Patent Pathways program. Um, and that's our goal, and that's I think you said it's what we're passionate about, right? And that resonates because it's definitely not the pay. I don't. We're not making the money off of NCPP and the patent pipeline and the patent pathways program. It's the
It's volunteer.
yeah, it's volunteer.
It's volunteer.
And and to put it into perspective, right? When we look at the people who've trained with us before, you have Greg Kirsch's, Kobe Henry's, Keen DeCarlo. I think James has done. Like we've had a bunch of people over the years who've done sessions for a patent institute training or a patent pipeline program, and these are patent attorneys with six-figure salaries and doing phenomenally well on their own, right? There is nothing that we as a nonprofit organization can pay them to compensate them for their time or to compensate them equivalently for what they could go out and draft a patent, in that same time and do, or go out and draft the office action. So it's very important for the next generation of students and individuals in these programs to understand that it's free, but there's a lot of work and a lot of commitment and passion and devotion that everybody who is associated with these programs are putting in, and that can't go without that can't go. We can't lose that. We can't lose that sight. It takes individuals like yourselves who are sitting in here who's going to say, "Well, I'm gonna step up and help out where I can." Mentorship, development. One of the things we're seeing is just professionalism, right? It's like we can teach you how to draft claims, but we can't teach you how to be professional, or we don't have the bandwidth to teach you all the little intricacies to professionalism. Would you like to give some light on that in your program, Elaine?
Yeah, yeah, no, we actually started a soft skills sessions within our patent pathways program because I remember what it's like because I'm first generation American, first generation lawyer in my family, and I remember my first job walking into this law firm and thinking, what, like, what is this? And so I had to make many mistakes to learn kind of what this law firm life was all about, and so. But I had gone to law school, so at least I had kind of some basis. Some of our patent pathways participants are straight out of engineering school. They've had zero exposure to law or to law firms. And so they really, first of all, the culture within the law firm is something they have to adjust to. But a lot of it, some of these sessions are about what does it take to be a trusted advisor? We brought in Stuart Hirsch, who teaches this program. Like, what does it take to be a trusted advisor? We have this trust equation, and we go through it with our participants. And really, to our partners that we support, when you're working within a law firm? How do you gain their trust? What are kind of these some of these unspoken rules within law firms that you might want to know? Trying to teach our participants that will give them a leg up. Um, so we've just started implementing that program to help them navigate within the law firms because we're finding that that's a big issue with regard to retention. They finally get a job, and then within 6 months to a year, the work dries up. And then we can talk about, I mean, this is a whole nother topic about why are, and this is standard, I don't want to be too judgy with other law firms is, but why, and I've been there, why are new practitioners looking for work their first year? That's tough. I mean, you're new to the law firm and the culture, and we're asking them to go seek their own work. That's hard. So there are types of practices that law firms can really be more open about and potentially changing so that maybe, distribution of work will change. And I know that can also be with regard to advancement. Are you getting good projects? I know there are some firms that have implemented systems that distribute work more equitably. So these are some things that have affected retention. I don't know if you've had similar issues with regard to your participants about, a year into it, all of a sudden we're trying to find them a new position.
Um, I can't say that I've had some manners, right? I think the bigger issue for me is this expectation that these students are, how can I put this, further along in their legal career than they really are, right? Like we have firms treating technical specialists right out of undergrad, perhaps, or graduate degree, first time in the field, understanding we're training them drafting and prosecution, and yet their expectation of these individuals is that of, I wouldn't even say a 1L, it's more like a first year associate. Carry yourself in this way, billable hours, this and that. You should have done this, you needed this. And that's all fine and well, but you realize that, like, with this program or these programs, and with you getting a more junior or novice person who's green, there's a certain level of mentorship and development that you as the firm still have to carry. And I think some firms get it confused and think, oh, well, yeah, they know how to do the work, they're good, and we expect all these things. And so a part of my job is come as a recent to realize is actually leveling the expectations of some of these firms who have expectations of our candidates that are far and above actually what they really should. We had a black female student drop the program last year because she was working with 3 different attorneys at the same time as a technical specialist. I don't think I worked with 3 different attorneys at the same time my whole private practice career. And had I known that, I would have stepped in, but it's one of those things that wasn't brought to my attention until later. And so I deal with those types of issues, and that's been challenging for me because also the firm is a business, right? And I understand, okay, so a first year associate today, what do they make? I'm asking the audience, what does a first year associate make today? Average, 210, all right? Technical specialist, 100,000, right? So if I can give you somebody who can draft and prosecute patent applications as a technical specialist who hasn't gone to law school, and then you have a law grad making 210, which for the most part probably still won't have the same amount of experience as this technical specialist, why are you expecting them to carry themselves in the manner of a first year or a law student, who's recently graduated? When indeed there's $100,000 differential in those 2 individuals. So you can take that $100,000 and invest some money in their training and education for professionalism. It's not a one-stop shop. And especially when it comes to underrepresented minorities who haven't traditionally had the upbringings, like who haven't traditionally had like a father to tie their tie, to show them how to tie a tie, like, looking individuals in the eye, firm handshake, making sure that you're clean cut and, up to par, up to speed. All of us don't have these things. All of us didn't grow up with these. We're figuring them out on our own, right? And so the expectation level from law firms, it has to be level because it's already ridiculous in my opinion. But it just has to be leveled some way for the actual diversity to thrive.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, there's a book that I read called Executive Presence that talks about how, like, how you appear, like how can you, as a first year, they say, well, how should I dress? What should I wear? Should I be conservative? Well, I think when I started, I was as conservative as I could be. I did not want to draw any attention to myself. And as you've gotten older, you can bring out some of your authentic self. But that was a good book if anyone's looking into how to navigate that culture in an executive setting, or even for those who are just getting involved.
Yep. And so we've talked some about just the challenges that we experience and that we've seen in law firms. Um, one of the things that you and I have discussed is it's one thing to present a qualified candidate with a firm, put them on to a firm, put them on that trajectory, they get hired, and they're going throughout the process and learning and developing. But what about retention? Right. We talk about getting the job and bringing them to the table, but what are you seeing as far as retention when it comes to what's occurring with law firms?
I wish I could say the stats were good, but they haven't been. And actually, one of our longest hired participants from our 2022 class, just hearing that things are there might not be a future at her future firm. And I think that the concerning part is, and this could be again the expectations that firms have with regard to the learning curve. There's a steep learning curve with patent law. I mean, on average, it takes 1 to 2 years, probably 2 years. That's probably a better estimate of getting up to speed on drafting complex technologies and prosecuting them, and all the nuances that go in a profession. So it is disconcerting when after a year a firm might say, well, they're not getting their billable hours. They do good work. The work is really good, but they're not efficient. And usually we hear that conversation after a decision has been made. And so we're like, well, we can work with them. Like, we'll work with them. I mean, John Harry will raise his hand and say, I will teach them about efficiencies. We're all about efficiencies at our firm. But usually that decision is made after the fact. So they've reached out to us, too late in the process. So we're trying to intervene earlier and having some check-ins to make sure our participants are performing well. But even then, they might be doing well at that time, and then 3 months later, they're not. And it's almost like, I don't know if you look into this, but my daughter plays volleyball, and she's a senior in high school, and she played a lot her sophomore year, and they have a new coach senior year, and she didn't catch the new coach's eye, so she's been sitting on the bench a lot, and it's almost like that. I would say in our patent practice that if someone sees something in you, then you can almost, it's a bias. You can almost do no wrong. And they'll take you under your wing, build your confidence, and you're going to perform better. I know that happened to me when I was in high school. I had a 10th grade teacher that was the most loving, amazing woman. When I was underperforming, she said, you're going to do better. That's all it took. And so, what firms can do, we talked a lot about mentorship and sponsorship, is taking this diverse participant who's probably shell shocked by this law firm and nurturing them, giving them some confidence to say, you can do this, and not be, see one thing that you don't like and then say, oh, we're out. Like, this is, and they're not meeting, you know, I understand it's a business and we have to make sure that we're generating profit because we're a business. But really, are you losing that much on this participant? I mean, if you make the investment, how much more will this person give back to you? So those are kind of our thoughts, like earlier intervention and giving us the knowledge so we can come around them and support them. So the better support system you have, the better that person's going to perform. And sometimes it could be a confidence issue.
Yeah. Yep. I would definitely echo the letting us know when things are going on early on in the process when you see them, so that we can help support those students. We don't view this as kind of a one-time ordeal. Like, we still support students far and beyond like the program, right? There are people who are there are people who I've trained years ago, and they still call me for advice. They still call Kobe for advice, Keen, Greg. Um, we're in a small profession, right? So we have to be able to support each other. So I say that to say that if there are our students with your firms, it's not like we just hand them off and walk away. That's never the case. We want to build in as much support as we can, but we can only provide that support if we know there's an issue, right? And we've seen it happen when decisions were made, for candidates, that didn't work out, and we had no idea about it until the end. We could have possibly intervened. It's just like the case I mentioned earlier, where a young lady left the program because she didn't feel supported and she didn't see people who looked like her. And by the time it got out of hand, by the time she got fed up with it, like it was too late. Now that's from the student side, but we've seen the same thing happen from the partner side. It's, oh well, we are, it's too far and we're good. Well, give us the opportunity to address those scenarios or situations and see what we can do to help, right? Help mitigate it. Because all too often, we're all predispositioned to biases, right? Like, I'll tell you that I have several seersuckers, as you guys have seen, and the one I get the most compliments on is this one, right? And would anybody like to give a reason as to why they think I get the most compliments on this seersucker? Not material. Hold on, I think I heard it. The color. What about the color? What do you expect a man to wear? Typical society doesn't. Pink is a woman's color, right? But that's how we're groomed. Blue is for baby boys, pink is for baby girls, right? So I say that to say that we all have inherent biases. Doesn't make them necessarily wrong all the time, but a lot of times they can play into our decision making, right? And we all have to be honest with ourselves and say, yes, I do have biases. Each and every one of us has some type of biases. The dig comes in is when you realize that your biases are impacting others, or you're letting those biases unfairly impact others, right? So with some people, view African Americans as predisposed to failure, right? So when they're given that chance, we're going to give them a chance and try them out, right? And when one thing goes wrong, we didn't expect it to work out anyways. We knew it wasn't going to work from the jump. And Margot Bagley sent me an article, with recent Michelle Obama speech, and we're not allowed to fail upward, right? So when we have that issue, and it happens with women as well, when we have that one issue, right? I can remember it at my firm, one issue, right? You thought I was the worst person in the world after several years, and we have that issue, and you come down on us like thunder, right? Rain down on us like thunder. We're horrible, right? But if our, lack of a better term, we'll just say white male, if a white male does it, well, he had a bad day, right? Or a male in general, you know.
Well, we have our minority firm incubator at Harity, and a lot of our firms would say that exactly. They said, we can't make a mistake. We make one mistake and we're done. That's it. So, it's those biases. It's like they've decided that beforehand. They're looking for one mistake, and that's all too common. You would think that it wouldn't be, but it's all too common. It still happens.
Yeah, that's- here's what here's what I've seen. Not don't necessarily agree with it, but here's what I've seen. Our program is open to all. If you're an engineer and we can train you to get into the profession, then or scientist, right? Then you're a viable candidate by that means. But if you're older, let's say, I don't know, 40s, 50s and above, maybe even 30s, some law firms look at your your lifespan, like they're looking at you as a profit center, right? Well, this person is only really going to be able to practice with us for this amount of time, and it's actually held against you. It's a bias, right? It's a bias, and that's what you deal with.
Ageism.
Ages. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You speak up, King. Here's the other piece to that too, though, especially in today's economy. I've seen this where we've had a great candidate on paper. They're probably 3 or 4 years outside of undergrad or a graduate degree. They've been working, so they have experience. And you look at that and you say, okay, well, they have experience, which means they probably have some level of professionalism. And that's what we want as a law firm, right? You want to be able to transition those individuals as the technical specialists and patent agents. Where it gets really difficult now is what I'm seeing is that sometimes in those tech positions, 3, 4 years, let's say working for Google, Meta, whoever, these candidates are already making well and far above what the law firm is willing to pay them as a technical specialist. So I literally had the most perfect candidate, a young lady, tell me, well, I'd have to take a $20,000 pay cut and stocks and options and bonuses. Like, why would I do that? I want to do this, but financially, it doesn't make sense. So there's also an issue where law firms aren't paying for the type of talent that they actually really want to recruit.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And we actually accept career engineers into our program, anyone facing barriers entering into the patent profession. And yeah, that can be a problem for those who not those who have retired, obviously, they're looking for something new, but for those, like you said, that have been making a nice living and short term would have to take a cut. That's a tough pill to swallow. And like Braxton said, you know, firms are usually they can make money off of a technical specialist, as Keen said as well, because their salaries aren't as high as a starting associate who's doing just prep and pros. So it's kind of that trade off. But yeah, our program absolutely will hire, but we run into that same problem with salaries. And it differs among big law. We have smaller firms, and this is really interesting because we're trying to think of a way to get the reps and still keep their full-time jobs. And are there opportunities to do part-time work or internships or corporations stepping up to help with some training? It really, Brax and I are not going to solve the diversity problem. We can't. But it takes our entire field to step in and do the work, to train, to volunteer time, to mentor corporations. I know you don't hire freshly out of school, but you guys are pretty talented. So you could help too. So all of us, whether you have time to train or whether you want to volunteer as a mentor, everyone can do a small part in advancing diversity. It's as easy as that. And if anyone's going to IPO, we're talking about this on Sunday for a networking lunch called Making Room for Diversity in Association with ADAPT. So I hope that if you're going to IPO, you can attend that on Sunday morning at 11:30.
James.
Yeah. I know. It's so funny because we've done it's paper after paper. We've written white papers at IPO about this topic. We've got the studies, we got the information, et cetera. John Harity likes to joke when I joined Harity in 2017, they had one diverse male and 13 white men, and then they hired me. And then we started these diversity initiatives. And let me tell you, we have grown to about 45 practitioners now in 7 years. So he says, our firm changed when you came. Do I think it's because of me? I don't think so. I'm like, that's ridiculous. But it's because we are now bringing more diversity. So our firm is the living proof that having a diverse workforce improved the bottom line by a lot. And so, yeah, I don't know where the disconnect is. Where's the disconnect? If you can answer that, then we're done. Drop the mic.
Uh, yes.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting because our trusted advisor talks about that, about like if you're going to be late for assignment, you need to communicate it. It talks about all the things that go into being a trusted advisor. It's a wonderful class, but it doesn't end there. You're exactly right. I think the hard part for us, because Patent Pathways started within Harity, that it's hard for us to tell another law firm how to run their law firm. And so we it's a gentle, you have to be super careful on how you're doing that. We did have a webinar about inclusion once they've hired a participant. How do you make sure that they're trained, and how do you make sure that they're included, and steps to do that. And now we are engaging our law firms on one-on-one conversations. But that's a great point. I think this subject about what the level setting is, what their expectations are. I think those are wonderful conversations to have.
I agree. I agree. I think it needs to happen more. And I'll say that, even with, the patent pipeline program, it hasn't happened to the extent that we would like it, right? Part of that is purely being resource constrained, right? Um, Am I making excuses for it? No, there's always more work to be done and improvement to be made, but we are resource constrained. And when we devote so much to the students and attention to them, attention to the law firms themselves can kind of fall off. But I will say, as far as, professionalism, when we see things in class that give us pause, we bring those things to the students' attention. And we have kicked students out of the program. So this class that is graduating today is not the class that we started with. If you are not turning in your assignments as a PPP student, I'm going to assume you're not going to turn in your assignments at a firm. And I don't want to put our name and reputation on the line in backing individuals we don't believe are going to do the work. And so we have had to, unfortunately, kick students out of the class or give them alternative options if they are truly interested in continuing on in developing and learning, but sometimes on their own dime. If this is really what you want, well, then you need to have a bigger stake in what's going on. And so some of these are learned lessons over the years. We're continuing to adapt and grow and implement them. But also to Elaine's point earlier, different firms have different structures, smaller firms, medium-sized firms, larger firms. Um, there's a whole lot of just variability in that just in general, right? But we're always open to feedback. And I hear you, Rita, loud and clear. We're always open to feedback and leveraging that and improving the program, because if we don't do that, then we're not putting our students in the best, giving them the best opportunity to succeed. And at the end of the day, we don't want a sour relationship with the firm, right? We want the firm to be happy, want the students to be happy, and we all want to succeed together. And so we try to put our finger on the pulse of those things when it happens, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. Could you speak? I can't hear you. Could you speak up? Mhm. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
we've talked about that.
We we have. I am. I don't know if they have a professionalism kind of course. I mean, we need professionalism 101, like at its core level. And if that's what that organization have, Rita, let's definitely connect and provide that, because we're so focused in on dialed in on executing on the substantive. This is how you do the job. This is how you do the job. This is how you get it done. We just don't have the resources to then continue to devote towards more of the professionalism, even though we have, a couple professionalism hours here and there for the students.
Yeah.
And same with you. It's like your focus is on getting them trained to take the patent bar. It's professionalism isn't our niche, even though we know they need it. So we're open to any opportunities and thoughts and ideas that you guys have in order to help build that, because it's something that they need. And I might sound old by saying it, but this new generation is not like us.
No
They're not like
offense,
us.
no offense to you all that are here. I've got some in the next generation. No offense. The Generation
I
Z.
had somebody self-select themselves out of the program because they said writing a 500-word essay and submitting a resume and transcript was too much not to be guaranteed a job at the end.
Oh.
I said, well, you'll never come through this program. I might need to pass that name along to you. Yeah, I think somebody had a question, maybe. Yes.
So I would say for the Patent Pathways program, we recruit also law students. So they're sometimes hiring people that have a law degree. So that's not, it will vary because they'll have to offer something more to someone who has a law degree. So that hasn't really been an issue. When we first started Patent Pathways, when we were reaching out to firms, we tried to obtain information about the firm beforehand, and there were some that we just crossed off the list. We wanted to approach firms that had technical specialist training programs so that they weren't guaranteed someone that they didn't have to train. So they had at least the tools to do that. Now we've learned through work with some firms that they just were not equipped to take care of our participants, and where we didn't pursue the partnership after that because we're like, there's just no way. But again, it's very nuanced too, because it can all sound wonderful on both sides. And until that participant enters into that law firm, I don't think I really understood all the differences between the law firms and how that they're run. I've worked with quite a few, but I just, I'm gaining more knowledge about how some firms have very good aspects for integrating and including new participants, and some of them are really, quite frankly, just not that great. So,
Yeah, it's difficult too. And we talked earlier about the panel session about like, having like, let's say, one perspective maybe when it comes to AI, and having various perspectives to give the feedback. I think we could be in some ways, narrowly focused, right? Like, you've had your law firm experience. You know what training should look like or could look like. I've had mine, similarly, but that doesn't mean that the entire ecosystem operates that way,
no.
right? And so, to answer your question, I say it could definitely be better. I'd welcome any thoughts on how to structure something where you're kind of vetting the firms as well, because the other portion of it is, well, in the scenario where something doesn't fit the check off all the marks as we want them to, and even with our current program, which is that they have a client sponsor to help hold them accountable, so we don't see some of the nefarious things or horrible things we've seen happen with law firms and underrepresented individuals. Are we willing to potentially hold up a job for another person that could actually get in and do well and walk away, or are we willing to kind of roll the dice on it somewhat, right? You're coming to me and saying, "Hey, we have this position open, and we want to partner with you, and great. Maybe you don't hit all the criteria, but we're like, well, that's one more spot we could use to get somebody in. It might work. How can we, work around that?" And so that's really where, because those opportunities don't come along all the time. And as you'll see here with this class, not all of these students who are graduating have offers in the bag as we've had with our previous classes. Our job is to prepare them such that when they're prepared, when they have that opportunity, and we're struggling and we're continuing to try and do that, but that opportunity doesn't always present itself. And sometimes you get your foot in the door, you get your 2 years experience, you realize it's not the firm for you. Well, you know what? If it's not working, I'm gonna support you to go someplace else, right? Because being in that working for a firm that's not working for you and where you feel like shit, treated like shit, it's horrible. It is a very horrible and lonely feeling, like being on the island. And so, what's that? What's that? Yeah. Um, so so yeah, it's that, we want it's that angst, right? Am I going to hold it? And I've had this happen because this firm did not fit my criteria as I lined out. Am I willing to hold up a job for a potential diverse candidate?
Yeah. Well, I love that you have corporations involved. I mean, we have some of our Patent Pathways participants that the one of our corporate sponsors actually encouraged their one of their law firms to join the program. And when they hired someone from the program, when she was a summer associate intern, um, they took her out with their general counsel to lunch. And so I just love that inclusion and that access and that support from the corporate side. So I see that as the ideal situation where we have a corporate sponsor and our participant and our law firm kind of all together Yeah, you
Yeah.
haven't had this.
No, 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 no. It works well and it makes sense, but the sad reality of it is that we are moving away from that after the Supreme Court case. We don't see the same level of corporate, um, of corporate participation in order to increase diversity. Everybody's scared, right? Um, and it's a shame. And so we're looking for alternative ways. Okay, I'm getting the time. Got my soapbox. Well, we're looking for alternative ways to deal with it. Be happy to talk to you any about that offline. Do you have any parting last words, Elaine?
This is, I will say it again. We encourage everyone to just do these small things that can, and then this is kind of adapts new. Small actions make big changes. So, did I get that right, Mike Benz? You can be a hero. I'm gonna say that for them. But there's a lot of opportunities between our two organizations. Patent Pathways, we have committees, and you can work on a committee. It's a great way to meet other in-house counsel or law firm members who are passionate about diversity. And it's fun coming here because I see so many people that I've met over the years and people who are interested in diversity, and it's such a wonderful group of people. So get involved if you can, even if you have a little bit of time. ADAPT can help place you somewhere. It's a worthy cause, and it's what makes me excited every day.
We're always looking for help. We can't do it alone. We need you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.